Okay, so beginning with the concept of demand, you need to understand, or you need to know all the, like whoever gave the concept, because now the trend is such that they ask you about, who gave this theory, or who was the author of a particular book, and so on. So you need to know that the concept of demand was given by Alfred Marshall in 1890s in his book Principles of Economics. So, what are the five characteristics which affect demand, or what are the five, factors which influence or even create demand in a consumer or in a person? First thing is the desire. Unless and until you have a desire to consume a commodity, or you have, an urge to consume a particular commodity, there will not be any demand. So it is very important that a consumer should have a desire. Only a desire can lead to creation of demand. Another thing is your willingness to consume that commodity. Are you willing? And willingness is not like you're happily willing. Probably it is like, there is a requirement to consume a commodity. That's why that creates some sort of willingness in an individual. So willingness to consume a commodity also affects demand positively, right? Next thing is the ability to pay for a commodity. So can you afford that, right? Can you afford a particular good? Can you buy a particular good? Then that will help you in generating that demand. So unless and until a person has an ability to pay, the demand is not created. I cannot go out and say that I have to buy this island, right? This is not a demand, because I do not have that ability to pay for an island, right? It is just a wish. That's it, full stop. It is not creating a demand, right? So ability to pay means unless and until you have that purchasing power capacity to consume that commodity, you will not call it a demand. Next thing, and the most important of all, is the price of a commodity. And that is what leads to our law of demand. So, a price of a commodity is very important in determining or in creating a demand in an individual, right? So you must, okay, during the session I'll be giving a lot of lame examples, right? So just bear with me. And coming back, the price. So why do you think that in the last month, and especially in the last week of December, the car companies slash their prices? They are just trying to create a demand in you, right? A demand to purchase their commodity. And then last factor which affects demand is the time. Over a period of time, you consume a commodity over a period of time. And this is what makes demand a flow concept, right? Simply because the consumption happens over a particular period of time. It is not at a point of time. So, just a question. Is supply a stock variable or a flow variable?
Flow variable.
Supply is a stock variable or a flow variable? Yes, yes, you can say. It's a stock variable. A commodity is.
Actually, the voice is breaking here.
Sorry? Is my voice audible, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So a supply is a stock variable. It is not a flow variable. A commodity is supplied at a point of time, but demand is a flow variable. A commodity is consumed or demanded over a period of time. So at and over, there are two different things, right? Just a second. Then, so what are the factors which affect the demand? First factor is the price of own good. So as we said that there is a negative relationship between the quantity demanded and price of a good. So higher the price, less will be the quantity demanded. Another thing is, another factor is the income of the consumer, right? So generally what we say is higher the income of the consumer, higher will be the quantity demanded, right? But then we have a concept of inferior good here. So what is an inferior good? An inferior good tells you that there is a negative relationship between income and quantity demanded. So when it comes to inferior goods, right, higher the income of the consumer, less will be the demand. So in case when it comes to income, we have two categories, normal and inferior goods. And in case of normal, there is a positive relationship between quantity and demanded. In case of inferior goods, we have a negative relationship between income and quantity demanded, right? Next factor is the price of related goods. Now, related goods are of two types. First is your substitutes, another is your complements. So, in case of substitute goods, we talk about that two commodities are consumed in place of one another. You consume one of the two commodities. They are competitors. But in case of complements, they are consumed with one another. They are consumed together, right? So if the price of say good X, sorry, if the price of good X is increasing, then in case of substitute goods, the demand for good Y will increase. Why? Because that due to the price of good X, the rise in price of good X, good Y becomes cheaper. And simply because X and Y are substitutes, they can be consumed in place of one another. The demand for good Y increases because it is now relatively cheaper. So when it comes to substitute goods, there is a positive relationship between price of X and demand for Y. But what happens in case of complementary goods when they are consumed together, right? So just because they are consumed together, if price of X it increases, the quantity demanded of Y will fall, right? Simply because if there is a rise in price of X, there will be a fall in demand for X. And just because they are consumed together, there will be a fall in the quantity demanded of Y, right? Next factor is your tastes and preferences. Again, if you have favorable taste for a commodity, then the demand will increase. And if you have unfavorable taste for a commodity, the demand will fall, right? Another factor is your advertisement outlay. This is more from the perspective of the producer, right? So higher is the advertisement expenditure, right? More the producer will be able to increase the demand, right? Or more it will, try to create that demand or willingness to purchase a commodity amongst the consumers. Another thing is the future expectations of a price, right? So if you are expecting that price in future will increase, then your quantity demanded at present will increase. You'll start hoarding goods, right? And that was one of the reasons why the price of sanitizers increased considerably when this lockdown began, right? Another thing, if you're expecting the price of a good to fall in future, right, the demand at present will fall. So we know that recently the gold prices increased considerably and people were expecting that prices will fall in future. So they withheld their demand, and now at present with the fall in price of gold, now the demand is increasing, right? Then is number of customers in the market. Higher the number of customers, more will be the quantity demanded of a good, right? So we are clear till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Okay. So moving on, now that we have done or we have gone through the factors which affect demand. So what is the law of demand? Again, the law of demand was given by Alfred Marshall, and it is a partial equilibrium analysis. Question time. Why do we say that the law of demand is a partial equilibrium analysis?
क्योंकि ये सिर्फ प्राइस के चेंज होने पे डिपेंड करता है, अदर थिंग्स आर कांस्टेंट.
Very nice, very nice. Because we say that other things remain constant. We are taking other factors to remain unchanged. We say that partial equilibrium analysis, we say that the law of demand is a partial equilibrium analysis. And it states that there is an inverse relationship between price of the commodity and quantity demanded of it. Ceteris paribus, right? So, how do you represent the law of demand? It is represented using two methods, graphical and your tabular or demand schedule. So you have under graphical, we have demand curve. Under tabular, we have demand schedule. So as we can see, in case of the graphical representation, demand curve is a downward sloping curve, implying that there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Similarly, in case of demand schedule, we have that as the price is falling, your quantity demanded is increasing. Now, just note here that the demand curve and the demand schedule, they do not tell you what the price is. They are just telling you that, okay, if the price is 4, the consumer will demand 4 units. If the price is 2, the consumer will demand 8 units, and so on. It is not telling you that what is the actual price prevailing in the market, right? So demand curve and demand schedule only tell you about the different possibilities, right, a consumer is facing. Next is, what is a market demand? a summation of individual demands is your market demand. So you add individual demands, that will be your market demand, right? So now the question is that why do we say that the demand curve is downward sloping? What are the reasons for it? First reason is the law of DMU, which states that as you consume more and more of a commodity, the willingness to spend more on it falls. In other words, as the quantity consumed increases, the marginal utility derived from each additional unit which is consumed, it falls. And when marginal utility falls, the willingness to pay for that commodity also falls. Right? Second reason is your decrease in price. Income effect. Right? Now, in case of income effect, what happens that if there is decrease in price, there will be a rise in real income. So what is real income?
The quantity that we can purchase with the given income,
Exactly, yes.
the
So is it
purchasing power.
exactly very nice. So is it in terms of money or unit? Anybody?
Sorry,
Is it in terms of rupee or units?
units.
Yes. So
Yes.
Units.
purchasing power, how many units you can purchase out of a given money income, that is what determines your real income, right? So if there is a decrease in price, there will be a rise in real income because now you can purchase more of the units of the commodity. And because of this increase in real income, this will imply that there is an increase in purchasing power of an individual. And as a result, there will be increase in demand. So this is what your income effect states. And income effect, when we are talking about in terms of your demand curve or the reasons, we are talking about your real income, right? We're not talking about your monetary income. So please note that, right? So we are talking about your real income and not your monetary income when we are trying to determine the demand curve. Next thing is your substitution effect. Again, if we are saying that the price of a commodity falls, so that commodity, say QX, is now cheaper as compared to QY, right? And as a result, just because this commodity is now cheaper in the market, the consumption will increase and hence there will be increase in quantity demanded. So please note, when it comes to Marshall, he just explained the law of demand using substitution effect alone. He did not consider income effect on price change. So this was, later, incorporated by Hicks and Slutsky. It was income effect was later incorporated by them using the utility theory. Okay. Then is different uses of a commodity. So if there is a fall in price, right, a commodity will be put to different uses. Now the price of carrots is going to fall in near future, and we are all going to experience, at least in my household, we are going to have that gajar ka halwa every day and the carrot cake and whatever, right? So due to that decrease in price, now the same carrot will be used for salads, gajar ka halwa, carrot cake, and so on and so forth. And as a result, the demand for it increases. So with the fall in price, the commodity will be put to different uses. Then is your size of the market. So if there is a fall in price, more people will be attracted to it. And then there will be a rise in demand. So this is what happens during the sale season, right? But then it is not always true that there is an inverse relationship between the price and quantity demanded. So there are exceptions to the law of demand as well. And one such exception is Veblen effect. That is in case of luxury goods, or it is also called the doctrine of conspicuous consumption, given by Thorstein Veblen, right? So higher the prestige value, right? Higher the prestige value of a commodity, more will be the demand of it. So if there is a high prestige value, or in other terms, high price of it, more will be the demand for it. Let's talk about Picasso paintings, right? So it is priced amazingly high, and but it is still demanded just because of its value, its prestige value, or the pride people get in, having hold of that painting. Next exception is the case of Giffen goods, given by Robert Giffen. So one characteristic is,
Sorry to interrupt, but please may I put one question?
yeah,
Any
yeah.
suggestion on how to remember the names? As in here, though they are still related to the concept that is that is given by them.
Yeah.
But when we have like too many names together,
Hmm.
so I'm not good at that. I can retain the concepts, but I can't remember the names and the dates and all that. Any suggestions on how to do that?
See, I will suggest you that as and when we proceed, like we progress with the syllabus, start making a table,
Okay.
like just, okay, say a theory, name, and
Okay.
book. Just
Okay.
make a table like that. And if there is
Okay.
an year given, write that as well.
Okay.
So just start making a table out of it. You will remember. Eventually, you will remember. Or at least you will be able to take a guess.
Sure. Thank you.
That's what you need, because in such multiple choice questions, what happens is you need to increase the probability of you answering correct,
Correct.
right?
Right.
So once you
Right.
start making this a practice, at least your probability will start increasing. You'll start, you'll be able to differentiate between, who gave which theory, or at least you'll be able to differentiate that this theory was a part of microeconomics, or this theory was a part of, development, and so on. So don't worry,
Right.
get a hang of it, right?
Okay.
Okay,
Sure. Thank you.
no problem. So coming back to your Giffen goods, right? So in case of Giffen goods, what happens, just remember one thing. All Giffen goods are inferior goods, but not all inferior goods are Giffen goods. And hence the Venn diagram like this one. Another thing which differentiates between inferior and Giffen goods is that inferior goods is determined using the relationship between income and demand, while Giffen goods is determined using the relationship between price and demand. So if you're saying that there is a negative relationship between your income and quantity demanded, there is a possibility there is a possibility that there is the law of demand holds true for inferior goods. So do not confuse. In case of Giffen goods, there is a positive relationship between price and quantity demanded. But in case of inferior good, this relationship can hold true. Right?
Does Giffen Good say anything about relationship between income and demand as well?
So now you tell me one thing. If I'm saying that all Giffen goods are inferior goods,
Yeah, okay,
right?
correct.
Then
Got you, got you.
it is implied that there
Positive
is
relation,
a negative relation.
negative relation
Exactly.
between income and demand.
True. Right? Okay. There's a very interesting story when it like how the Giffen goods, the theory of Giffen goods came into place was like
Yeah, the potato
during,
story.
sorry?
Potato, breads, meat, and
Yes,
all that, I guess.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. That was during
But
the
do we
war.
have more examples related to Giffen goods? I
Uh,
have never heard of like more than that.
See, Giffen goods, is very much prevalent. Like I went through this concept today morning itself, and
Okay.
this concept is more prevalent in very, very underdeveloped regions,
Okay.
right? Very poor regions, actually.
Hmm.
So this is where the concept of Giffen goods is more valid. It's not in a
We do
country.
not have many recurring examples for Giffen
They're,
goods, right?
they're not. They're not.
Yeah.
Right, so probably it can be like when it comes to say rice, you have different qualities of rice, right? And rice is a staple good in some parts of the country,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
So like when the price of rice increases, even of the least, of the most inferior type, then people do shift to other, other goods as such. So they will start reducing their consumption of rice. So this is like, it is actually, the concept of Giffen goods is valid for very poor regions. It's not valid for rich countries or developed regions and so on. For rich or developed regions, more prevalent concept is that of Veblen goods, while in
Yeah.
case of poor countries, it's more Giffen goods,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Third is the case of ignorance on the part of the consumer. So if you are ignorant enough that, okay, you don't know the price of the commodity, then definitely you will end up paying higher price, right? Then in case of expectations also, we will, like, if you are expecting that the price will increase further, the quantity demanded at present will increase. That's why people did buy mask for 250 bucks in March, right? Because they were expecting the prices to increase even further. And then is in case of war. So whenever there is a possibility of war or disturbance in a region, then people do start hoarding stuff, even at a high price. And that again leads to an exception in the demand curve. So yeah, even though the answer is given, I'll just strike it off. So let's just solve the question here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, everybody.
So income effect is positive in case of normal goods. All which of the statements given above are correct?
Yes.
We have
Answer.
not read superior goods, right?
We have not read superior goods. What are superior
Yeah.
goods?
What are superior goods?
They're normal goods. There's
They're not.
nothing else.
Okay.
It's just inferior and superior. That's all they're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, answers please.
1, 3, and 4. They are correct.
Okay. Anybody?
This one.
Anything else? Yes. Anybody who thinks A, B, or C can be an option? Okay, interaction, people, please be interactive. Yes, the answer is D, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't mind, can you please recall that story of Giffen goods?
Yeah, definitely. So what
Yeah.
happened was during World War One, right? American soldiers, they had meager incomes, and they had this possibility, like, the option was potato, bread, and meat, right?
Yeah.
So but with the the level of income they had at that time, so during wartime, so they were just left with this option of consuming potato and bread, right? They did not have any other option. But what happened was, because of another some circumstances, the price of potato fell, right?
Okay.
So they thought that, okay, now the price of potato is falling, right? Our real income is increasing. So why not we just change our consumption pattern a little, reduce the quantity demanded of potato, right?
Okay.
And whatever income which was allocated in consumption of potato was rather diverted to meat. So that is why,
Okay.
with the even after a fall in price of potato, the consumption of potato fell, and there was a rise in the consumption of meat, even though it was a minimal rise in meat, because meat was expensive as compared to potatoes. So
Yeah.
American soldiers, they preferred to give up their entire money spent on potato and rather spent it on consumption of meat. That was the story, and that gave, birth to this theory of Giffen goods.
Yeah. So like potato was too inferior to be consumed. This is what they
Exactly,
thought.
exactly. So it was
Yeah.
basically the nutritional value.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Which gave rise to consumption of meat.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. The two effects we have, bandwagon effect and snob effect, right? So whenever a commodity is in fashion, everybody is buying that, right? And this leads to a bandwagon effect. So individuals demand a commodity only because it is in fashion, right? Snob effect, rather, if there is an exclusive property attached to a good, right, then it is a snob effect. If just because of its exclusivity you are consuming that good, that is your snob effect. So people like purchase during auctions in, museums and so on. That is snob effect, basically what you see in pictures or movies or televisions. So that is mostly a snob effect. So why they are buying it? Just because they have a prestige value, and it is a kind of Veblen good. So the theory given by Thorstein Veblen, that is the theory of or doctrine of conspicuous consumption, is influenced by snob effect, right? So coming on, what is change in demand and what is change in quantity demanded? So if you're saying that there is a change in quantity demanded, this change is influenced by price, right? And this is represented by a movement along the demand curve. And any movement along the demand curve is said to be either an expansion or a contraction in demand. So, if I say that there is a downward movement on the demand curve, we say this is
Expansion.
expansion, right? And if I say that there is an upward movement, it is
Contraction.
Yes.
Yeah.
So downward movement, expansion, upward movement, contraction. So don't get confused in this one. Another thing is change in demand. Whenever there is a change in demand due to factors other than price, then we say that there is a change in demand. Now, factors like income, tastes and preferences, related good, prices of related goods, and so on. So that any change in these factors will lead to change in demand. And this change in demand is determined or is said to be either an increase or a decrease in demand. And this, if it say in graphically, this is represented by a shift in the demand curve. So if I say that there is a rightward shift in the demand curve, it will be
Increase in demand.
increase in demand. And if I say that there is a leftward shift in the demand curve, then it is
Decrease in demand.
decrease in demand. Okay. Okay. Yes. So we have done till here. Okay. Then coming on to the demand for durable goods. So durable goods are those which can be stored and which are consumed for a long period of time. So if I say we have cars, durable goods, we have fridge, durable goods, we have air conditioners, we have sofa sets, whatever kind of whatever is consumed for a long period of time, they are durable goods. And because of their durability or their consumption for over a long period of time, the prices are not volatile. So whatever prices of, even you say, if you take into consideration refrigerators, it has just incorporated the inflation level over the period of time. Otherwise their prices do not fluctuate much, right? And another thing is, in case of derived demand, so labor, derived demand is the demand for goods which are used to produce other goods. So labor is demanded to produce other goods. So for labor, we'll be doing this in factor pricing, but you're demanding labor. If you're demanding labor, then that is your derived demand. Okay. Okay, so we are clear till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Coming on to the elasticity of demand. So we have talked about, if there is a change in price, there is a change in quantity demanded. Now, we have talked about the relationship, but when we ask the question, how much, this is answered by the concept of elasticity of demand. And this was given by Alfred Marshall again. And elasticity of demand tells you the responsiveness. It measures the responsiveness, of demand or quantity demanded due to factors like price, income, or price of related goods. So while demand is qualitative in nature, elasticity of demand is quantitative in nature. It tells you in numbers, right? So this is the elasticity of demand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So qualitative and quantitative. Demand tells you the direction in which, there is a change taking place. So it tells you that, okay, there is a negative relationship between price and demand. There is a positive relationship between income and demand, so on. So it tells you, demand tells you about the direction of change. But when we say by how much the change is happening, then that is answered by elasticity of demand. Okay. So, what are the kinds of elasticities? First is your elasticity of substitution, right? So, elasticity of substitution is the proportionate change in relative demand of the two commodities, that is Qx by Qy divided by Qx by Qy, the whole divided by the proportionate change in their relative prices, implying change in Px by Py divided by Px by Py. And this is nothing but, Px by Py is nothing but your marginal rate of substitution. So alternatively, we can write this formula as change in MRS XY divided by MRS XY. So what is marginal rate of substitution? Marginal rate of substitution is that what is the amount of a good you are willing to sacrifice to consume an additional unit of the other good. Basic question is, if I'm saying marginal substitution of good X for good Y, which good am I sacrificing here? Is it good X or good Y? Which?
Good Y. Good Y, we are sacrificing for X.
Exactly. So whenever we say that marginal substitution of good X for good Y means we are sacrificing good Y to consume
कहाँ गए वो?
one additional unit of good.
मेरे को उनका phone चाहिए.
Parul, your voice.
Please.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. Okay. So when we are talking about perfect substitutes, we say that your marginal rate of substitution in that case is constant. Okay, so let me just write it down like
What
this.
is the purpose of this elasticity of substitution?
Elasticity of substitution is like how much will you be, like what is the amount of good Y you will be willing to sacrifice? How much? You know?
Okay.
So if you're saying Qx by Qy divided by Qx by Qy divided by change in MRS XY by MRS XY, or I can just use this, simplify it. Yeah. So when we talk about perfect substitutes, right, we say that your marginal rate of substitution is constant, right? Means it is remaining the same, say 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. There is no change here. When there is no change, that means this portion is equal to 0. Your denominator is equal to 0. That makes your elasticity of substitution equal to infinity. So in case of perfect substitutes, your marginal rate of substitution is constant and your elasticity of substitution is infinity. Right? But when it comes to perfect complements, right, your marginal rate of substitution is 0. That means your numerator here, it is equal to 0, which makes your elasticity of substitution 0. Right? Yeah.
How? We have
Yeah.
MRS is 0, so the denominator is 0.
No.
0 by 0 would be like
No.
an indeterminate solution.
No. See, MRS is 0 in case of your perfect complements.
Perfect complements, yeah.
Yeah. So the numerator is 0 here. I have just modified the formula further.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Coming on to the price elasticity of demand. So price elasticity of demand is nothing but proportionate or percentage change in quantity demanded over proportionate or percentage change in price. So change in Q by Q divided by change in P by P. Right? Now, please note the negative sign here. So a negative sign depicts that there is a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. Now, for example, if a question comes, right? If a question comes that there is a 10% increase in quantity demanded due to 10% increase in price. If a question like this comes, so will there be a negative? What will be the price elasticity?
-1.
Yeah, -1.
Sorry, what is 10% increase in quantity demanded
demanded
due to 10% increase in price?
Yes,
That's 1.
that's 1. Because
Yes.
whenever you get a question like this in your
Yeah.
examination, please note the direction of change,
Okay.
right? So
So
this
we can have
negative-
exceptional questions like this also.
Yes. So
Yeah.
be very careful about this one,
Okay.
right? Okay. Okay. So with this, we have different types of, like shapes of it or different possibilities. So if you have price elasticity equal to 1, we get a rectangular hyperbola. Rectangular hyperbola because you take any two possibilities, the area underneath the chosen points or coordinates remain the same, right? So this blue region, the area will be equal to this green region. When price elasticity is greater than 1, the curve will be a flatter one because due to a small change in price, there is a larger change in quantity demanded. So see the gap here, right? So percentage change in quantity demanded is greater than percentage change in price. When price elasticity is equal to 0, you will get a vertical line. Because no matter what, there is no change in quantity. So percentage change in quantity is 0 divided by percentage change in price, and hence a vertical demand curve shows price elasticity equal to 0. When you have a horizontal demand curve, the price elasticity will be equal to infinity.
Can you give me an example for the situation?
For
Ma'am?
a price elasticity equal to infinity?
Yeah.
So,
Ma'am?
yeah.
Ma'am, Shikha here. Ma'am, can you please see the messages once?
Okay.
I have just sent it to you.
Just a second. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sure, Shika. No problem.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. So, okay, just take a example, farmers market. So if there are two people, right, offering you one with 20 rupees a kg and another one is offering you with, say, 10 rupees a kg,
Okay.
right? So who will go to the 20 rupees one?
Obviously,
Yeah.
nobody.
So, right. So price elasticity is equal to infinity in that case. So if you increase the price even by 1 rupee, you lose all your customers,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
Next is the case when price elasticity is less than 1, you will have a steep demand curve, right? So that means your percentage change in quantity demanded is less than your percentage change in price. And hence,
Uh,
price elasticity is less than 1. Yes,
yeah, you think price elasticity equal to infinity is a practical situation?
it is definitely, but in a micro sense.
Okay.
Say even for, why do we keep urging, to buy handmade or Indian products and not the Chinese products during Diwalis?
Can't relate to this concept.
In the sense
Maybe.
that when you see, when for example, you have two people selling the same product,
Okay.
right? Exactly same product, but
Mm-hmm.
one is selling at a cheaper rate, other one is selling at a higher rate,
Yeah.
then definitely you will obviously go to a
Go
cheaper.
for the preach. Yeah,
Yes.
correct.
So if initially they were offering at us, take an example, I just Amazon pantry,
Okay.
right? They
Hmm.
reduce the price by rupees 5 during their sale season, and everybody is buying on pantry and not the local grocery store,
Okay.
right?
Correct.
So
Hmm.
that is how it happens if people are used to Amazon pantry,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Correct.
right? Okay. So, yes, question, please tell me. No answer. Yeah.
Which of the following?
Yes.
A downward sloping demand curve is
One answer
because we
is
have
downward sloping demand curve. Yes. Any other answer?
using point elasticity method.
Okay. Any other answer? Okay. So the answer is correct. So it
Oh,
is a downward sloping demand curve, right? And we can refer to, and you're absolutely right, using the point elasticity method, right? Okay, so how do we measure price elasticity of demand? First is the one we've already done, that is your proportionate or percentage method. So you just state that, okay, this is the percentage change in quantity demanded upon percentage change in price, and this will tell you about price elasticity of demand. Question, solve.
this is 3.
3.
Yeah, we don't have minus, otherwise it's like -3.
Exactly. So if there would have been an option of -3, then
Then -3.
-3. Always go for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Next is your point elasticity method. Point elasticity method, which is lower segment upon your upper segment. Okay. So this is, they have divided the downward sloping demand curve in 5 different categories with this to be elasticity of price equal to 0, the midpoint to be elasticity of price equal to 1, and the topmost point of elasticity of price equal to infinity.
But
Middle,
what is this actually like? I don't get this method. What are we doing here exactly?
because you know this method is more prevalent in your production theory when we are doing market structures. So why do we say that, like I'll just jump onto this, that why do
Okay.
we say this region of the demand curve is more elastic and this is less elastic?
Yeah, we are applying point elasticity.
Yes.
But I don't get this. Can you please explain me what is this exactly? What we are doing here? Why are we dividing lower by upper segment?
Because in this case, when the price is extremely low, this is the midpoint, right? Take it. When the price is extremely low, consumers are not affected much by the
Okay.
change in price. That's why we say that in case of this, the price elasticity is less. So if a price of a commodity is already very low, any change in price will not affect the quantity demanded of it to a great extent. For example, take the case of salt, right? It is
Yeah, yeah.
priced very low compared to other food products. It is
Yeah, got it, got it. Yeah.
low. So any 1 rupee change in price is not affecting the consumer much. But when the prices of the commodity high, right? When the prices of the commodity is high, even 1 rupee change will affect the quantity demanded of it. So this method basically tells you that when the price of a commodity is low, the price elasticity is relatively inelastic as compared to those commodities whose prices are high. Got my point,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
When prices are high, even a slight change will affect people's demand.
Exactly. Now, see, I remember Tata Salt was priced, that one packet of Tata Salt, half kg,
Yeah.
was priced rupees 10.
Yeah.
So they
Hmm.
started increasing the price about till 12, then 15,
Hmm.
then 17, then 20. That was the price. Now it is priced around rupees 60.
Oh,
I,
really? I don't know. I'm not aware of this.
now it affects, right? Now it affects us. But when it was
Yeah.
priced very low, even a 2 rupee increase in price was like, doesn't matter. It's okay.
Yes, yes, yes,
Right?
yes.
Okay.
Correct. Thank you. Hmm.
No problem. Okay. Then you have the method of arc elasticity, right? So arc elasticity is measured or used when you have, when the changes in prices and quantity are supposedly large, or you have a curve like this and you have to measure your price elasticity over a particular range. So now you're not calculating price elasticity at a certain point. Rather, you're calculating the price elasticity over this entire range. And when this happens, when you have to calculate the price elasticity over an entire range, the arc elasticity method is used. It is also the average method, or it is also called a midpoint method. So it is nothing but the change, say Q2 minus Q1 upon Q2 plus Q1 divided by P2 minus P1 upon P2 plus P1. This is what your arc elasticity method is.
Why are we dividing it by Q2 plus Q1?
Because of this average method. We are taking into account the averages. So just because we have to take into account over a range,
Yeah.
over a particular range, not just one point as such. So we have to take an average. That's why we calculate range. That's why we calculate all the,
Yeah,
mean.
yeah, 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 yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
Ma'am, please repeat this point.
So in the sense, when you have to calculate price elasticity over a particular range, Initially what we were doing that, okay, initially we were doing that, okay, this is the price and quantity, and this is the price and quantity. You have to calculate the price or the elasticity of movement from this point to this point, right?
Yeah.
Initially we were
Okay.
doing that, but
Yes.
now what we have to do
Okay.
is, over this entire range we have to calculate our price elasticity over this entire range, not just 2 points, but over this entire range. So whenever we have to calculate our price elasticity over this range, we use arc elasticity method when there are too many possibilities available with us. Right?
Yeah.
Sonia, is it right? Is it fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Next method is your revenue method, right? So revenue method, we'll be doing it in production theory, in monopoly and so on. But just for an introduction, revenue method, it is AR by AR minus MR. We'll do this in detail in our later chapters. Right? Okay. Next method is your total expenditure method given by Marshall. Now I'm just reversing the situation here, which is given in in this table. So now I pose a question to you that if there is an increase in price, quantity demanded falls, expenditure increases. So price elasticity of demand is,
Greater than 1.
sorry, elasticity is less than or greater
Elasticity is high
by,
because with a increase in price, we have responded, we have reduced our quantity, and no, expenditure is increasing, no?
expenditure.
Is increasing. No, but then I think it is not elastic. Inelastic.
Yes.
It is
Sonia?
inelastic.
Okay, so you're right that even despite an increase in price, the expenditure is increasing.
Yeah, this is how people try to increase their revenue of from inelastic goods.
Yes. So elasticity is, less than 1. Now there is an increase in price, there is a fall in quantity, but the expenditure decreases.
Yeah, in this case, it is greater than 1.
It is greater than 1. Again, there is an increase in price, there is a fall in quantity, but expenditure remains constant. Then
Equal to 1.
equal to 1. So everybody's got this point, that how are we relating with price increase and expenditure to determine the
Yes.
elasticity?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Okay. Now, coming on to your income elasticity. Till now, we've done with our price elasticity. Now, another type of elasticity is your income elasticity. And it tells you about the responsiveness of change in demand due to change in income level. Now, the term 0 and 1 plays a very important role when it comes to income elasticity. Firstly, 0. It helps us in differentiating whether a good is a normal good or an inferior good. So if income elasticity is greater than 0, it is a normal good, showing that an increase in income is leading to an increase in demand. And in case of inferior good, it is less than 0. That is, that your quantity demanded is falling with the rise in income. Now, what about 1? So 1 plays a very important role as well, and it differentiates normal good into luxuries and necessities. So if your income elasticity is between 0 and 1, it will tell you that it is a necessity good, means your income elasticity is inelastic, right? And the consumption of that particular commodity will not change much with a rise in income. So again, if your income doubles, you will not start consuming double salt. Your necessity goods, the consumption of necessity goods will be more or less the same. But when it comes to luxuries, the income elasticity is greater than 1. So yes, if your income increases, you might want to go in for a more luxurious products. Right? So
Yes.
please remember this segregation between different goods, 0 and 1.
Yeah.
And what determines, or how do we graphically determine, the income elasticity or relationship between, income and demand? It is represented by using angel curve. So if you have a steeper curve, upward sloping, but a steeper curve means we are talking about luxuries. Sorry, necessities. I'm so sorry. But if you have a flatter curve, upward sloping, but flatter curve, we are talking about luxuries. But if we have a downward sloping curve, we are talking about inferior goods. Right?
Yes.
And lastly, we have cross elasticity of demand. Right? So it is measured as the proportionate change in quantity of, say, X divided by proportionate change in quantity of Y.
In price of wire.
Sorry, price of Y. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Right? So if this relationship is positive, means that your quantity demanded of X is increasing despite an increase in price of Y. This means that the goods X and Y, they are substitutes. Agreed?
Yeah.
But if your quantity demanded of X is increasing due to a fall in price of Y, that means we are talking about complements. Means there is a negative relationship between the two. A negative relationship between these two. And hence we'll have a cross elasticity with a negative sign. But if your cross elasticity is equal to 0, that means the two goods are unrelated.
मैम ये नेगेटिव साइन इसमें आएगा कॉम्प्लीमेंट्रीज में
Complements में.
ठीक है मैम
Right?
Yeah.
यस मैम
Okay. So with this, we have covered our concept of demand and elasticity of demand. So I'll stop the share. Any doubts? Anybody?
Yeah. Elasticity of substitution.
Elasticity of substitution. What
Just
about?
one. I don't know. Just say one more time. What is the significance of that?
Elasticity of substitution in the sense that, okay, I'll give you a very bad example here. I don't know
No
if
problem. That will work.
you're not, but let's say I see Maggie and top ramen.
Okay.
Right. So there was one time when, like, I don't know how to cook, and I had to consume Maggie every day. And then for a change, I was like, okay, stop. I don't want to consume Maggie anymore. It's time to start devoting my expenditure towards top ramen
Okay.
for a change in taste. I'm tired of consuming Maggie.
Yeah.
Right. So that is what elasticity of substitution says, that if you keep on consuming one good, right, your taste for it or your satisfaction level reaches a peak, and then it starts giving you negative utility. So how much are you willing to consume that good by sacrificing the another good? So that my willingness to sacrifice top ramen, kept on decreasing as and when I started consuming one additional packet of Maggi.
Okay.
That's what elasticity of substitution tells you, that, okay, what is it? Yeah.
And how do we get this formula?
This formula, in the sense, this was a given formula actually, not determined by me, but I'm
Yeah.
like elasticity of substitution. It is change in your proportion of the two goods divided by the ratio of two goods divided
Okay.
change in the relative prices divided by ratio of the two prices. Now we'll do this in indifference curves. So we'll do this in detail in indifference curve analysis. But Px by Py is also your MRS XY.
Yes.
So by substituting this in our formula, we got change in
That.
MRS XY by MRS XY.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember this, MUX
No,
by
that I remember. Yeah.
is equal to PX by PY is
PY.
equal to MRS XY.
MRS. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody?
you.
Any query?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. I'll stop the share here and I'll stop the recording.